Welcome to the OTP. I'm Amie Wells, and we're not in the studio like we normally are. We are over here at Nissan Stadium for an event that we like to call Meet the GM. It's a very original name. Myself, Rhett, Bryan, we were able to spend some time with Titans general manager and president of football operations right here with some of our closest friends who just happen to be season ticket members as well. So here's our conversation with Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi right here on the OTP. And we are so excited to introduce you to some of the people who are going to be leading this Titans team through the 2025 season and beyond. So just for starters, I'm Amie Wells. This is Rhett Bryan. We will be your fabulous hosts this afternoon.
She will be fabulous. I'll just be here.
So Rhett, I guess we should probably just get right to it, huh?
We should. Our first guest, ladies and gents, is the president of football operations for the Tennessee Titans. He's a seasoned NFL executive, a track record he has of success in team management and strategy, a former Green Bay Packers executive, and brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to the Tennessee Titans. Ladies and gentlemen, president of football operations for the Titans, Chad Brinker. How we doing?
Hey, doing great. It's great to be here.
Excellent.
Good to see you.
Titan fans.
Chad, do us a favor and let's pull back the curtain a little bit on some of your role and really the process of hiring a new general manager that you guys, I'm sure by now know as Mike Borgonzi. But how do you gather the pool of candidates for that search?
Yeah, someone asked me that question when we were going through our search. Was one of the questions they asked me, are you going to hire a search firm? And I said, for what? This is what I do for a living. I know all these coaches. I know all these general managers around the league are up-and-coming general managers. So, it happened pretty fast. I knew I wanted to get ahead of the New York Jets at the time and the Las Vegas Raiders, as well as the Jacksonville Jaguars, because there was something going on there I had heard about. So I tried to jump on it really fast, narrowed down the candidates to 10. We did 10 Zooms in 3 days. Those are about 3 to 4 hours a piece. And then narrowed that candidate pool down to 6 for in-person. So we had a candidate in the morning. Those are about 6 hours, a candidate in the afternoon. So we had our owner, Amie, and obviously Kenneth Adams involved in that, and Barkley. We're there at lunchtime to meet all the candidates and spend a couple hours with them in between at lunch. But we brought those 6 candidates in. That was a pretty intense process, but it became pretty clear, even early in the Zooms, that Mike Borgonzi was rising to the top, and when he came in person, he just crushed it, and I knew he was the right guy for our organization.
All right, so you talked about you had knowledge of Mike Borgonzi. That's a small circle, you guys working in the league for these teams, but what was the aha moment with him when you realized, okay, it's Mike Borgonzi?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a fraternity in our league when it comes to scouting and coaching. There's a lot of a crossover over the years. So Mike and I met in 2009, and I was in Green Bay, and he was in Kansas City. We were out on the road together scouting, and we just hit it off. So I had a really good relationship with Mike from the beginning, and quite frankly, all the candidates that we brought in, especially the final 6, I had really good, strong relationships with. But Mike, just knowing him over the years, he's just one of those guys that's always been extremely prepared. He's intelligent. He's an Ivy League grad. He went to Brown, played football there. Just real impressed with him as far as his football knowledge. Anytime we talked about players, which we did a lot of, it just, the evaluation part was really impressive to me. And just the person. He's just, you'll get to meet him here in a minute. He's just an outstanding human being, very humble, hardworking. He's from the Northeast, blue-collar kind of family. Really had to grind in this business. Both he and I had similar paths in that regard, but he really started at the bottom. He was at Boston College as a recruiting assistant there, and kind of got into the NFL and started as an intern, scouting assistant, and pro scout, and kind of worked his way up. over a 16-year career, and in recent time, one of the most successful organizations in Kansas City Chiefs, and won multiple Super Bowls there. So it was pretty cool. But I think all the candidates that we brought in that week, I remember tallying it up. I think there was 14 or 15 Super Bowls amongst the 6 that we brought in. So that was really important to find someone from a winning organization to kind of bring that type of mentality to Tennessee.
You and Mike obviously work together a lot. How have you found that your skill sets complement each other as you're working together to build this Titans team?
Yeah, I think, obviously I grew up in this business as a scout as well, so we have very similar backgrounds in that regard. And Mike had been part of the inner cabinet with Andy Reid, Brett Veach, and others over there in Kansas City. And I had a similar path with the Green Bay Packers, where I was involved in a lot of the decision making too. But one thing where I diverted from a lot of the scouts in our industry is I had an opportunity to work on the salary cap, player contracts, analytics, and then operations, and kind of my career evolved over time while I still had my baseline of scouting. And I really got the Pandora box opened to me by Russ Ball and Ted Thompson up in Green Bay to show me how to run an NFL franchise, and I'm very grateful to that organization, what they had given me. But Mike grew up in this industry where he was exposed to a lot of those things, but his primary responsibilities for 16 years was building a football team, and that's what he is. He's a team builder, and he understands who can play and who can't. He understands how this piece fits here, and if we make this decision, it'll affect another decision down the road. So he's really good with the strategy of team building as well.
Chad, you mentioned some of the things in your resume as you kind of went along your process in Green Bay, and those are applied in your role as the president of football operations. Outside of roster construction and those things, let's give us another peek behind the curtain of maybe a couple of things that you've been doing this offseason or that fall under your purview, because you are over a lot of different responsibilities and departments as the guy of football operations.
Yeah, I guess in January, when you look at an org chart, I had 14 direct reports, and I needed to thin that down a little bit. And with hiring Mike, Mike oversees our coaching staff, our scouting staff, our player engagement, sports medicine, and medical. Now, I support him in all those areas, of course, but that's his primary responsibilities. Anything outside of that, whether it comes to the salary cap, whether it comes to data science or the analytics side, to the operations side, where people don't even realize it you're talking equipment and video, grounds crew, you got your software side of this, which we call our football information systems. Anything that touches that football team, I'm ultimately responsible for. But I've been able to put some key leaders in key positions where it's helped me to focus on the main thing, and it's helping Mike build this football team. But I'm able to support him from the long-term strategy. The way I look at my role, I think I'm looking out for the organization long term, like 5 years plus. That's the way I view the long-term strategy. Our general manager needs to be looking after the organization over the next 2-3 years, and our head coach just win the next game. That's what I want him focusing on. That's all he needs to worry about. And as long as each of us understand each of our roles and how we fit into those roles, it's been a good group so far.
You mentioned the technology and software part of your role, and I know you're really passionate about technology and utilizing technology to help this team continue to grow. What are some of the things that you're working on and implementing to help build this Titans team?
Yeah, there's a lot. We've done a lot in the last 2 years. When I got here, there really wasn't much in terms of technology and analytics. We had our traditional scouting systems or the coaching systems as far as how they watch tape. But we've really had to build everything out, kind of like a startup. I've built a team of, we got 6 on the analytics side and FIS as well. And really had to start from scratch and just building it out. As far as some of the things that we're doing that maybe you might be interested in, we just partnered with a company called Zebra that's going to be working with us on the player tracking data. So all of our players, when they go to practice, there's a tracking device either in their shirt or on their shoulder pads where it's tracking their heart rate, their speed and acceleration, deceleration, change of direction, we're just monitoring everything for these players. So we get reports that come back every single day. We can see the max speeds that our players have hit that particular practice. We can also see if a particular player is kind of overloading himself to a point where we might have to pull back on the reps the following day in practice. So we're tracking all that data that goes into our system and our database. And we do a lot of things from injury prevention as well, from the sports science side in the weight room with the testing of the hamstrings. A lot of hamstring injuries happen in our league, our muscle pulls. So we're always measuring the strength of the right hamstring versus the left. We're looking for asymmetries and just being able to build a plan around that to get our strength coach involved, the sports scientist, our nutritionist, our head coach, our personnel folks, and everybody on the same page. But all that data is got to be stored somewhere. And that's one thing that we've created is like a central hub, because it used to be, and maybe in some of your companies that you've worked in, Johnny down the hall keeps everything in his spreadsheet, and Joey over here has things in his spreadsheet down the hall. Like, we pull in all our data into one system, so when I pull up a player in our system, anything I want to know about that player, from scouting reports to the coaching reports to the sports science to the height, weight, speed to practice to the contract, anything I want to know, it comes up in a matter of seconds. If I want to watch tape on that player, right in our system, if I wanted to see all the third down throws of this particular quarterback last season, I can just click on that button, the film pops up immediately. So that's some of the technology that we've implemented within the organization. And some of the things we are doing a little bit more on the cutting edge around the league when it comes to lean body mass and muscle to bone ratios that we're looking at. And, maybe Mike will speak a little bit more on that with his experience in Kansas City. But there's a lot going on.
Wow. That's a lot to digest. One-stop shop for you. I understand the centralization of that. That's interesting. So we've just had the NFL draft. The Titans obviously had the first overall pick. Cameron Ward, the quarterback from Miami. We're excited about that. Yes. Yep. In your role as president of football operations, did that change anything at all, having the number one pick? Was there anything that made it different?
Yeah, I understood the magnitude of that. I think, you always approach every season the same way. We have our processes and how we follow and how we scout and how we kind of build the database of these players and the profiles. I don't think that's changed as far as the work, but when you have the number one overall pick, knowing the situation that we're in, I remember I was talking to Amie probably late October, and the season wasn't going as well as we would have hoped, and I knew there was a potential that this might go in a direction where we might have a top 5 pick. So I need to get out there and see some of these quarterbacks. So I went out in the fall. Like, if we played an away game, I would go to one of these college games on the Saturday before whoever we played and try to see those prospects. I saw every one of them last year, including 2 of them that actually went back to school, the LSU quarterback and the Georgia quarterback who went to Miami. So I went and saw them all, and I got to see Cam. He played Georgia Tech. I'll never forget it. I went out real early to warm-ups, and I just wanted to see how he operated, see what his routine was, and just watching him throw the football was super impressive. He had this routine similar to some of these great quarterbacks that I've been around, whether it's Aaron Rodgers and others. And I don't know. I don't think I said anything to anybody at that point because there's a lot we got to figure out as far as the person. There's more to playing quarterback than just being able to throw an accurate pass or have a strong arm or pocket mobility. Those things are important, but that's really a neck-up position, and we needed to figure out what Cam was all about. And then once we dug into that in the offseason, I'm sure Mike will hit on this here in a little bit. I mean, I just can't wait till y'all get to know Cam Ward. He's pretty impressive.
Mike Borgonzi is coming up next, right?
He is.
All right. Chet Brinker, thank you so much for taking the time. We so appreciate you. We know you're a very busy man, so we will let you get back to work. And I think we're just going to bring up our next guest, right?
Let's do that.
All right,
Let's
ladies
give a round
and
of
gentlemen.
applause for Chad Brinker, President of Football Operations.
This summer, SeatGeek has your ticket to the best live concerts in Nashville at Nissan Stadium. SeatGeek has the best seat, your seat, for an unforgettable summer. From rock royalty to rap superstars, R&B to country, find it all on SeatGeek, the official ticketing partner of Nissan Stadium. Little Caesars is the official pizza partner of your Tennessee Titans. Download the Little Caesars app and get your favorites delivered today. Delivery fees apply. Now, back to the OTP. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to introduce the general manager of the Tennessee Titans, Mike Borgonzi.
It's great to see everyone.
They're happy to see you. So you started this role in late January.
Yep.
Since then, you've had just about everything in the world to do. You've been to all-star games, you've been to the combine, you've been to free agency, and you've had pro days, and you had, I don't know, the #1 pick in the NFL draft. You've had a lot of stuff to do. When exactly did you stop to say sleep or eat or take a breath for a minute? Have you been running since January?
It's been busy, yeah. but it's a good busy. You know, the thing is, we have a great group here, and when you love doing something like I have and the people that I have around me, it doesn't feel like work. It is work, but when you surround yourself with good people and you're trying to, get to the common goal of building a roster together, it's really been a joy to work with Chad, and we hired Reggie McKenzie, who's a former GM with the Raiders, Tennessee Evolve legend, Dave Ziegler, who we hired as well. So it was really seamless for me coming in. A ton of work, but when you surround yourself with good people, it really doesn't feel like work.
So Amie mentioned all those pre-draft things that ramp up to the draft and to where we are now. And in your role with the Kansas City Chiefs, you've been to all of those things multiple times, but how different was it going into those situations as the general manager of the Titans?
It was different, but, I had really a front row seat when I was in Kansas City because, we weren't very good at one time. At one time, we did have the #1 pick in 2013. So, learning from mentors like Andy Reid, John Dorsey, and then working with Brett Veach all those years, I was able to see something from the ground up and to build it from the ground up. So when I came here, it's a step-by-step process. It's not going to happen overnight. But, I've seen it before. And really for us, when we're building this team, it's not only the talent, and I've talked about this, it's just bringing in the right type of character guys as well. Football character, personal character. We want smart, tough, dependable players here that are good in the community as well and that are good teammates. So, I've seen it done before, and if you surround yourself with good people and you have the same vision, usually it works out.
The Titans were pretty active in free agency. What was your top priority heading into that time of the year?
Well, I think for us, and we all come from similar backgrounds where, it's building the team from the inside out and to making sure that the fronts are there. So, building the offensive line was a priority for us, when we first got in here. And, we signed Dan Moore, who's played left tackle in Pittsburgh for 4 years. He's, dependable player. And then JC, who they drafted here last year, we were able to move him to right tackle as well. And then Kevin Zeitler, too, who we're going to plug in here at right guard. He's been in the league for a long time. A veteran guy like that in the room, I think, is really important. And then we went on the defensive side of the ball and attacked that side with Draymond Jones and, able to add some pieces there, too. So, but for us, really, we want to try to build the fronts of offensive line, defensive line first, and that's been our philosophy.
So you mentioned some of those guys, and with the Dan Moore move, you were able to kind of do two things at once by moving J.C. Latham to right tackle, which appears to be his natural position. That's what he played in college. But Kevin Zeitler brings a world of experience at right guard. Building it inside out, certainly. I wanted to ask you more about Draymond Jones because I thought he was one of the better free agent acquisitions you guys got for the kind of skill set he has to help off the edge.
He's a bigger body for us that has played. He's versatile, too, so he's going to play outside linebacker for us in our base defense, and also has the capability to kick inside there, and you'll see him rush over guards as well. And, I've studied him all the way back to Ohio State and, just knowing the type of person he is. He was in Denver and then Seattle. So, he's going to be a tough, versatile player for us, but also bring a lot of leadership in the locker room as well.
We mentioned the big guys on offense and defense, also some big additions on special teams. Johnny Hecker, Joey Sly, 2 major additions, punter and kicker. They're kind of important. What makes those guys the right fit for Jump Fossil's unit?
So Bones, Coach Fossil actually had Johnny with the Rams when he was a rookie at one point. And, he's always been the consummate professional. Has been productive. He's a great locker room guy. And then with Joey, we've seen him kick over the years. He's got a big leg. And he's another guy that had a relationship with Coach Fossil in the past. So, we're excited to add those 2 guys into the specialist room.
Let's go to the quarterback position for a moment, too, because you added Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle in free agency to bring into that room. What was the thought process in bringing those 2 guys to Nashville?
Yeah, we'll start with Brandon. Brandon had experience with Coach Callahan in Cincinnati. He's a guy that knows the offense, a guy that's been a dependable backup in the league for years. And then with Tim, Chad actually signed him in Green Bay at one point, too. So they're 2 veteran guys that I think are going to add a lot to the room. So we're excited to get them there.
Hey Titans fans, with a Kroger Boost membership, you'll score big with double fuel points, free delivery, and lots more. Go to Kroger.com/boost for details. Kroger, the official grocer of the Tennessee Titans. Tighten up. Home is the forefront of all we do. It's why we're so committed to caring for the places and spaces in which we work and live. Ashley, the official furniture provider of the Tennessee Titans. Now, back to the OTP. Speaking of quarterbacks, you added another one in the drafting, Cam Ward. What was it about him that made you so sure he was a Tennessee Titan?
We did a lot of work on Cam, and for me, we in the fall when I was with Kansas City, we were pretty set at the quarterback position, so I really didn't study a lot of Cam in the fall. Of course, I looked at him, and I think one of the first things we did when I came in here is, I wanted everybody to sit down and study the quarterback position. I've always said that position is the most important position in professional sports, really. And just from the start, really watching Cam, a guy that's had, 5 years of experience. The guy's a 0-star recruit that carries this chip on his shoulder. He went to Incarnate Word, went to Washington State, and just continued to get better, And, for us, we had not met him before, so the first time we actually met him was at the Combine. His tape jumps out because the physical capabilities that he has. I mean, the arm talent he has, the arm angles that he throws with. And then when we got to meet him at the Combine, everything that we heard really from our scouts and everything, he's a special person. Not only his football intellect, but, he comes from a great family as well. And he's got a great way about him. And I just remember talking to Coach Cristobal, who's been around some pretty good teams. He's a former player at Miami. And he said that, he's the best leader that he's ever been around. And we got the same message from every person that I talked to. Actually, when I first got hired, I went down to the East-West game, and that was, we had our practices at North Texas, and there was a coach there, Coach Eric Morse, was my first really interaction with a coach that had coached Cam. And he had coached Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech as well. And he said to me, he was pretty short with me, he said, he's everything you're going to want. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, the way he carries himself, his leadership ability. He said, you can watch the tape and you're going to see that he's a good football player, but in terms of the makeup, he's everything you want. So we did a lot of homework on him, brought him in on a visit, had multiple Zooms with him as well, got to meet his parents before the pro day. So, I know he's excited to really get out into the community and to meet everybody else, but you're going to love him.
In night 2 of the draft, you took Oluwafemi Oladejo, a pass rusher from UCLA. And it's an interesting prospect because he's a guy that moved from inside linebacker to out as a pass rusher within that 2024 season. What was it that made Femi the right pick at number 52?
Yeah, it is funny because, he was playing inside backer for most of his career, didn't really move to the outside until the 4th game of the year this past year. But when you see Femi in interviews, he's a high-energy guy. Tough physical guy that's going to play outside linebacker for us. And he's just growing into his role as a pass rusher, too. So, he's been great since we've had him here, this past week, the energy that he brings in the locker room. And you'll hear his interviews and get to meet him here. He's a guy that's going to be a great locker room guy for us as well.
You're able to swing a couple trades, get some extra picks there in the process. And at pick 82, you selected Penn State's Kevin Winston Jr. Was that a good value there at number 82?
Kevin was one of the top safeties in the draft, and he probably would have went, early second round, and unfortunately, tore his ACL the second game of the year. But we went back and watched him his sophomore year when he was 19 years old, and he's a tough physical safety that is just wired right. So for us to get him where we got him at pick 82, very excited about him.
Yeah, like to your point, he just turned 21 in December, so he's gonna be a young fella there. So day 3 of the draft, you start on offense at pick 103 and take Florida wide receiver Chimere Dike, and obviously to improve the speed of the Titans is one of those attributes. But how much can that Florida wide receiver help in that department in the speed?
Yeah, Chim's a guy who ran 4.32 at the combine, one of the fastest guys at the combine. And for Chim, he's a versatile, smart receiver that also can bring some return ability too, punt return and kick return. So we were really excited to get him where we got him there, and really all those guys in the 4th round where we added there with Gunner, and he's going to be a versatile piece in this offense. He's really smart, and the return ability is going to be good for us too.
Well, let's talk about Gunner Helm a little bit. Tight end out of Texas. What do you think that he brings to that offense?
Gunner is a guy that's really just growing into the tight end, too. He was a former receiver in high school that actually John Elway was in Denver at Cherry Creek High School, was friends with the parents, and said, I don't think there's many receivers in the NFL that's going to run a 4.7 right now. So, but he was a big receiver, so they moved him to tight end. And, Gunner is a guy that, played behind Sanders, who ended up getting drafted in Carolina, a guy before the year before. So really this year was kind of his breakout year for him. And he's a big, dependable target. Guy's got long arms. He's got like 33-inch arms. So it's going to be great for the quarterback to have that type of player, smart, savvy, and he's got really good run after the catch, too.
So continuing at day 3, 2 more offensive picks in this. You took wide receiver Elikiah Manor from Stanford and an offensive lineman in Jackson Slater from Sacramento State. What was it that you guys liked about those 2 young men?
Well, first off with Elick, he's a big receiver that can line up at X for us. Big physical receiver that's going to be good in the red zone, good with contested catches as well. Another guy that's smart and versatile, too. In the offense. Really excited about him, added him with Chim. And it's great to have 2 young receivers kind of grow together. And you kind of seen them the last week here together kind of just push each other. Drafting those 2 guys where we got them, it's going to be really good for the receiver room.
Rounding out this draft class, you've got a corner in Cal product Marcus Harris, and then a converted linebacker from Michigan. And you have a big running back in Khalil Mullins. So both of those guys, strong players in their own regard. What do those 2 bring to this draft class that really rounded out nicely?
Well, first of all, Marcus, I got to see him at the East-West game, and he's he played outside corner at Cal, but we can move him inside to the nickel. Another guy that's going to have versatility. That's a big thing with me is having versatility, and he can do both spots. Guy that's quick twitch. And actually, the game versus Miami, actually, really, that's when I kind of noticed him a little bit, too. He made a couple plays on the ball versus Cam that kind of stood out to me. So really excited to add him to the room, too. Yeah, I forgot to mention Clell, too, Mullings, the guy who got from Michigan, the running back. Former linebacker, converted running back, so he's going to give us a bigger back in the room, too. Really tough and competitive, too.
Awesome to have you kind of run down the draft class in this and see all these things start to come together. We talked about all the first 4 picks in day 3 were all offense, and of course people talking to Amie and I are like, he's going to do all this to help the quarterback. I'm like, well, that's true, But you guys are in the AFC, and it's the Wild Wild West with all these quarterbacks in the division. You're playing the AFC West this year. It's about scoring more than 18 points a game. That's really what it is. Yes, you'll help the quarterback as a byproduct, but you got to put more points on the board.
But yeah, adding those offensive weapons, I think the game's evolved over the years where there's so much offense. The quarterbacks are so good in this league. You need to score points. You do need to have a very good defense too. But we've seen a lot of these games over the past really 10 years where they become shootouts. And I experienced a lot of those games over my career. So being able to have playmakers on offense is a point of emphasis for us.
Mike Borgonzi, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Guys, give it up for a Titans general manager.
Thank you.
Well, once again, we so appreciate you guys coming out to spend some time with us today. We hope that you learned a little bit more about this Titans team. We hope you are so excited about the upcoming season.